mass laundering, where there's a stamp permit that's signed off by a doctor, a veterinary doctor, and the animals are going out with permits, but they are not being captive bred. It's just a big con.
After talking to Johan, it was clear that South Africa's reptiles have long been exploited, with a clear list of problems facing rare and threatened species like the sungazer. I spoke to Professor Graham Alexander to learn more about this worrying problem of reptile laundering. Graham has been lecturing at Wits University for over 30 years and has supervised more than 30 postgraduate research projects on reptiles.
So as with money laundering, when you launder something, you hide the source of where you derive the money, or in this particular instance, the reptiles. So with reptile laundering, what happens is that people masquerade as captive breeders of reptiles, when in fact they're actually poaching reptiles and selling them into the pet trade. It's very easy to launder reptiles in South Africa because effectively, even if the legislation is there is very little enforcement of that legislation. So it's very difficult to measure where organisms come from, whether they have been wild caught or whether they have been captive bred. So there's several groups of Southern African reptiles that have got high demand in the reptile trade. There's various types of snakes like the small adders. The tortoises are also in demand. And there's various groups of lizards, especially the quadrillid lizards and some of the geckos, which fetch very high prices internationally.
The girdle lizards, and then of course the dwarf chameleons, very, very popular. Some of them have extremely limited distributions. Yeah, once you get to Europe, you go to Belgium, you go to Germany, you go to the Netherlands, and the USA is a massive, massive, massive market.
With demand for our South African reptiles being this high, it seems like smugglers and launderers will find ways to get them out of the country, using the loopholes in our systems and the inefficiency and inadequacies of our local law enforcement to police these issues. But there are solutions.
Okay, so the first thing we need to really change is our view of the importance of reptiles in ecosystems and how important they are in conservation. We need to take reptiles seriously.
For reptiles, there's no budget. There's nothing. So it's all just random accidental captures. It's ridiculous.
So although we have the legislation in South Africa to limit the effect of laundering of reptiles, the laws aren't really enforced. We don't really have the tools to ascertain whether a reptile that's sold has actually been captive bred. And so what we are doing now is developing the genetic tools to do just that, but we only have that available for a few species.
So we need an action plan. We need the authorities to take responsibility. We need to look at the genetics. We need to impose restrictions on these exports. Force keepers to have a genetic data bank. Make them prove to you that what they are exporting is captive bred. Put the onus on them.
An important part
they are exporting is captive bred. Put the onus on them.
An important part of my PhD research has been to develop these genetic markers for sun gazers so that we can do parentage tests on lizards that are to be exported for the pet trade. Since we developed these markers, they have been used in cases to deny permits for the export of sun gazers from South Africa. And I'm happy to say that since 2015, no more sun gazers have left the country under the guise of being captive bred. The small victory fills me with a lot of hope, but there are so many other species of reptiles that still need our help, and we have a long way to go to win this battle. Working with people that are passionate about reptiles, conservation, and education, we can make the changes in our country that are so desperately needed to save our dragons.
Thanks for watching Seeker Indie's screening of Saving Dragons. We hope it's stories like these about animals you may have never heard of that will inspire the change we need to save them, because we definitely need more dragons in the world. Now we want to show you our Q&A with producer Siobhan Parusnath, checking in on the status of the sungazer lizard and what is being done to help stop the very destructive wild pet trade.
I'm Siobhan Parusnath. I'm a biologist and a photographer and filmmaker from South Africa. I've been doing research on the sungazer for 10 years now. I started off when I was looking for master's projects, it was at the exact same time that I was looking to start a master's degree in biology. The Endangered Wildlife Trust, an organization here in South Africa, was looking to have a conservation assessment done on the species, basically to see how many animals were left in the wild, how populations are doing, how they've changed over time. My dad always has a camera out. From the time we were kids, even now when I visit him, there's always a camera around. As cameras became more accessible to me, I found them just to be a beautiful way to capture life and to capture moments. And as I went on this journey of researching the sun gazer, it's such a beautiful animal, but not a lot of great shots of the species had existed. I think that as a scientist, especially, you have many opportunities to capture things a lot of people don't get the opportunity to. And that's why I think science communication is such a beautiful thing, because you can share stories and images with people that are really just not accessible to someone in the general public. And it lets you firstly learn more about the world, and secondly allows you to care about things maybe you didn't know existed. There's a saying that the best camera you can have is the one that's on you. One of my favorite photographs that I've taken was taken with an old Samsung Galaxy S3 about 7 or 8 years ago. And of all the shots I've taken with very fancy camera equipment ever since then, that's still one of my favorite shots, and it was used in the National Geographic magazine. It was on the back cover of our South African Reptile Atlas. What we've got planned now is the formation of the first sort of reptile working group in South Africa that actually aims to focus just on reptile trade issues with South African reptiles. So the aim for the next, I would say, 5 to 10 years is to kind of get this up and running, to do non-detriment findings, to have species listed on CITES so they can be afforded better protection. The idea is to have this multi-stepped approach. Of course, we want to continue with the scientific research to be able to use genetics. So it's just kind of taking everything we've learned over the past 10 years and applying it to many other species besides just the sun gazer. My dream is that one day in a few years' time, poachers will say, well, I'm not going to poach in South Africa because there's just too much policing, they're too on the ball, you'll get caught out, and there's no way you can do it. That's where I want it to be. It's kind of getting there with sun gazers to an extent, and I would love that to be for every reptile, where no one dares set a foot here with those intentions.
This was Seeker Indie, Seeker's independent filmmaker showcase. Keep coming back to see what else we have in store and the amazing stories we continue to highlight. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on Seeker.
Meet Triol AT24, intellectual, universal, unique, ultra-adaptive, low-voltage drive. The ability of the Triol AT24 series of products to adapt to your challenges is achieved due to specialized performance, high-quality motor control, multiple software packages available, multiple accessories and external device compatibility, multiple power units, special service programs available for configuration and commissioning, uniform requirements for service, diagnostics, and repair for simplified use. Specialized performance. Triol AT24 series currently consists of 8 product lines, 4 lines for general industrial applications, and 4 specialized lines. Lines designed for general industrial applications, UC, UH, SD, and MP lines. Specialized lines used for elevators, oil production, drilling rigs. High-quality motor control. High-quality control is achieved by vector control, automatic detection of motor parameters with or without rotor rotation. An automatic check of the encoder phasing make the setup and application of vector control simple while ensuring high-quality motor control. Multiple software packages available. All Triol AT24 VFDs are supplied with a basic software package. Additionally, it is possible to expand the functions of Triol AT24 due to 15+ specialized software packages that significantly expand the functionality of Triol AT24. Multiple accessories and external device compatibility. The Triol AT24 control system of universal
So imagine traveling over 380,000 kilometers from home and only being able to explore a few meters from your airplane seat. That's something the Apollo 11 astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin encountered in their historic 1969 mission to the lunar surface. During their 21-hour and 36-minute stay on the moon, the two astronauts only traveled about 90 meters from their Eagle lander, collecting small samples for their return to Earth. Now let's fast forward 50 years where NASA's Artemis program is looking to travel up to 10,000 kilometers with the next generation of lunar vehicles. In July 2020, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency and NASA formed the Joint Exploration Declaration of Intent, or JEDI. Needless to say, we think the force will be pretty strong with this lunar rover. In order to design this new lunar rover, scientists and engineers are looking to learn lessons from the past, with goals of creating a vehicle that could go further, be more energy efficient, and adapt to the unknown lunar terrain. The very first lunar vehicle to be utilized was the Lunar Roving Vehicle, or LRV for short, in 1971. But you might also know it as the Moon Buggy, named for its design similarities to a dune buggy. This four-wheel aluminum alloy unpressurized electric vehicle was built in just 17 months and cost approximately $38 million. Having a way for astronauts to move safely around the lunar surface and return to their lander quickly was a huge leap forward. This vastly helped to extend the exploration radius, allowing Apollo 15 astronauts to travel over 27 kilometers, which is way more than the Apollo 11 astronauts. But at the end of their rides, they still had to return to a pressurized environment. And having access to a place where you're allowed to breathe is obviously a major factor in determining the exploration range for any astronaut. That limitation, coupled with the fact that the OG moon buggy just wasn't that durable, meant that NASA had to rethink the rover. In the late 2000s, NASA proposed a concept for a futuristic space vehicle known as a Lunar Electric Rover, or LER. It was set to be the first pressurized six-wheel omni-drive lunar vehicle, enabling astronauts to go on longer research exploration missions. It was customized with a mobile workspace and other really cool features like a shower and a suit port, which allow astronauts to get in their spacesuits from inside the vehicle. This was implemented because lunar surface contamination was a real issue in the Apollo program, and sometimes dust could damage the instruments or even get into the astronauts' lungs. The LER prototype made a public appearance at the Obama inauguration, as well as performed several test runs in the Arizona desert. It seemed to hit everything we were looking for: distance, energy efficiency, and adaptability. However, the LER never actually made it to the moon. The program was canceled in 2010 as a part of the larger Constellation program because of delays and overspending. Now let's start talking about the new and improved vision from JEDI. Not only does this agreement bring two major players to the table, but it also describes the plans for both Lunar Gateway and lunar surface exploration. This is an absolutely huge accomplishment considering JAXA has already begun developing a self-driving, pressurized lunar rover with the help of a major car company. Surprisingly, I'm not talking about Tesla. Instead, Toyota is helping us ditch the concept of inflatable tents and underground bases as we look at pressurized mobile space vehicles. The brand new rover, nicknamed the Lunar Cruiser, looks like the first pressurized space Winnebago and will help us explore new parts of the moon. According to JAXA, this massive six-wheel vehicle will be crewed by two astronauts, but will be able to fit four in the case of an emergency. And unlike the moon buggy, which utilized two 36-volt batteries to zip around the moon, the Lunar Cruiser will pack some serious power by utilizing fuel cells, allowing crews to explore the lunar surface for up to 14 days, with a maximum range of 10,000 kilometers. Some early concepts have even shown the cruiser with a large roll-up solar panel for some additional power. Although JAXA and Toyota are mainly relying on simulations and concept data right now, their plan is to work toward a full-scale prototype by late 2021, with the hopes of launching a flight model in the latter half of the 2020s. Even though we currently don't know a whole lot about the new Lunar Cruiser outside a few amazing concept drawings and some simulation data, this next generation lunar vehicle could revolutionize off-world exploration as we know it. Like this episode? Well, subscribe to Seeker for all your latest lunar mission news. And if you want to know more about space exploration, let me know down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Seeker.
Meet Triol AT24, intellectual, universal, unique, ultra-adaptive, low-voltage drive. The ability of the Triol AT24 series of products to adapt to your challenges is achieved due to specialized performance.
Let me show you how to create an amazing ad using stock footage. Go to artgrid.io. Look at all this great footage.
It is official. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is now one of 3 COVID vaccines that have officially been granted emergency use authorization by the United States FDA, joining the ranks of Moderna and Pfizer. Results of the Phase 3 clinical trials led by Janssen, a subsidiary of Johnson & Johnson, show the vaccine to be 66% effective overall at preventing moderate and severe disease. While not as high as Moderna's and Pfizer's 94 and 95% overall efficacy, this vaccine was found to be 85% effective against severe disease, regardless of the region or what variant it is exposed to. What's more, it requires a single dose to work and doesn't have specialized freezers, 2 attributes which could be massive game changers for expanding access across the globe. Because wow, has distributing COVID vaccines proved tricky. Mass vaccination is never easy, but this pandemic has presented some unique challenges. For one, experts have suggested that anywhere between 50 and 85% of the population must be vaccinated to achieve herd immunity, which is a pretty big range, and it seems to be changing all the time. Then there's the competing pressure of making enough vaccines to go around. And that's not even mentioning the amount of sheer effort and energy needed to transport the vaccines from the lab to the public.
The International Air Transport Association figured that with a single dose of vaccine given to 8 billion people, they would need 8,000 747s to transport it around the world. But actually, all the vaccines except for Johnson & Johnson are 2 doses.
That means everything from development to distribution to storage can be cut in half, a logistical godsend. Not only that, but the J&J vaccine is more durable than many of its counterparts, particularly those developed by Moderna and Pfizer. Unlike mRNA-based vaccines, which are incredibly fragile and require cold storage to protect from damage, the J&J vaccine doesn't require the same ultra-cold storage to stay intact. In fact, it can keep in a regular refrigerator for up to 3 months. So how exactly did J&J bring this all together? Well, it all has to do with how its vaccine is formulated. Similar to the University of Oxford's AstraZeneca vaccine and China's CanSino vaccine, it uses a modified adenovirus as its vector, specifically Ad26.
That adenovirus is going to induce certain kinds of protective responses that will allow this little piece of COVID that we stuck into it to have a much greater effect.
Once the little piece of COVID is inside the cell's nucleus, its gene for creating a spike protein is added to the DNA of Ad26. DNA's double helix structure is more robust than single-stranded RNA. The cell can then read those instructions to make copies of the virus's spike protein. These copies trigger the body's immune response, helping it to become familiar with the virus and develop a plan of attack should the two ever meet again. Adenoviruses are usually harmless to healthy people, aside from maybe causing a runny nose, and therefore low-risk vectors for delivering DNA into our body's cells.
You can grow adenovirus to very, very high levels in manufacturing, and that allows you to make a lot of vaccine very cheaply and at high quality. It has the advantage of being scalable. You can very rapidly expand and make hundreds of millions of doses very quickly.
But there's a catch. Or two. Our bodies can develop immunity to adenoviral vectors, just like they would to most real viral infections. This means that unlike other vaccines, which rely on additional shots to boost immunity, a second dose of the J&J vaccine could cause the body to start attacking the vaccine itself. Booster shots can be incredibly useful for providing further protection after initial vaccination, since the body can lose its ability to fight off the disease over time. They also hold the potential to bring COVID mutations under control by priming the body's system to look out for new viral variants. J&J is currently running a trial with 30,000 volunteers to see how the body might react to a second shot, and if it works to raise their immunity. Results aren't expected to be released until the year's end. The body's immunity to adenoviruses may also cause a wrinkle for the vaccine's efficacy. While most people in the US and Europe haven't been exposed to Ad26 and therefore don't have neutralizing antibodies, research has found that people living in places like Thailand, Brazil, and sub-Saharan Africa have higher rates of pre-existing immunity, which brings us to the results from J&J's Phase 3 trial. Overall, the vaccine is pretty effective at preventing moderate and severe illness, about 66%. In the US, it's even higher. But in Latin America and South Africa, the vaccine didn't perform as well. Still, the J&J vaccine remains 85% effective at preventing severe disease and 100% effective at preventing hospitalizations and death. Encouraged by this data, South Africa became the first country to administer the J&J vaccine in February 2021. And in late February, the US Food and Drug Administration approved it for emergency use. In light of this decision, Johnson & Johnson has announced plans to deliver 100 million doses to the US during the first half of 2021 and up to 1 billion by the end of the year, which means that we could get 1 billion people protected with this vaccine alone. Distribution is expected to start immediately. Want to learn more about this pandemic and how science is working to tackle it? Check out our COVID playlist here. Make sure to subscribe to Seeker for all your COVID coverage, and as always, thanks so much for watching. Stay safe. I'll see you next time on Seeker.
चेतन सोनी नीली आंखों में तेरी आंखों में